Okay, I asked Grok a really good question. And I know a lot of you guys do not like AI because it never agrees with you. It doesn't give you the confirmation bias that you are seeking for. Well, probably because that means you don't know what the hell you're talking about. Look, did any Romans equate Yahweh with Jove? Now, I know a lot of you guys listening to this video. I have no idea who's listening to this video. A lot of you guys don't even know who Jove is. All you know is the Bible. And you don't know that very well. All you know is the Bible. Okay? Jove is Jupiter. That's Zeus. All right? The Romans called Jupiter Jove. On most of the ancient inscriptions, they write Jove. Okay? Jove is Yahweh. So I asked Grok, did any Romans equate Yahweh with Jove? Yes, of course. Some ancient Romans and Greco-Roman writers did equate the Jewish god Yahweh with Jupiter, the chief Roman deity, due to syncretism in an interpretatio Greco-Romana, a common practice of identifying foreign gods with their own pantheon. Here's a concise overview. Evidence of equating Yahweh with Jove. The Romans often interpreted foreign deities through their own theological lens. Jupiter, as the supreme sky god associated with authority and divine order, was a natural counterpart for Yahweh. The monotheistic is not monotheistic. All right, that's just a popular thing people say. So when Grok scrapes the internet, all the theologians and scholars are calling the Bible monotheistic, which is quite ridiculous. The monotheistic God of the Jews. Look, Genesis 1:1 says, in the beginning, Elohim created the heavens and the earth. Elohim is plural. Genesis 1:1 essentially says, in the beginning, a pantheon of gods created the heavens and earth. Stop playing games with me, guys. I could get Grok to admit that if I mess with him about it. Who was described as all-powerful and creator of the universe in Jewish texts, known to the Greco-Roman intellectuals? Yeah, not to the peasants. Tacitus. Tacitus, right? The Roman historian Tacitus refers to the Jewish god as a supreme deity worshipped in a temple without images, which some Romans interpreted as akin to Jupiter. Yeah. Though Tacitus noticed differences, like the Jewish rejection of idolatry, he doesn't explicitly name Jupiter, but implies a parallel in divine supremacy. Right, because in the temple of Jupiter, I believe in the temple of Jupiter, you weren't allowed to have a bunch of images. I mean, they had a statue of Jupiter, but that was it. It was like, I think it had to be real plain, if I'm not mistaken. Celsus, the 2nd century. Yeah, Celsus was a famous... He was a famous Christian hater. He was talking shit about the early Christians. Well, he was talking shit about the Orthodox Christians, I believe, because they weren't very good debaters. Like the Orthodox Church Fathers, I'm sure they lost a lot of debates. I would like to see, did Celsus ever debate Marcion? I don't think so. The 2nd century Greek philosopher Celsus, cited by Origen. And Origen, by the way, I've read, Origen, if you reading Origen is torture. I force myself to do it from time to time. And Origen, in my opinion, is a retard. Okay, in my opinion. I'm allowed to say that. The 2nd century Greek philosopher Celsus, as cited by Origen, equated, but thanks a lot to Origen did preserve a lot of history, like Celsus, right? So we got to thank, Origen. Thank you for writing all this stuff, but your theology is trash. As cited by Origen, equated with the Jewish god with Jupiter, arguing that Jews worship the same supreme deity as pagans. The same supreme deity as pagans. Yahweh is the same supreme deity as... Bro, the Old Testament is paganism. They just don't have statues. Okay, and God doesn't have a wife. Not in the Bible that we have. Okay, God doesn't have a wife and no statues. That's like the main difference. I'm sure there's some other differences. They still sacrifice bulls and goats. They did all the blood sacrifice rituals, just like pagans. All right, Zeus. Do we have to go through Jupiter / Zeus? He lives on a magical mountain. He has 12 Olympians. All right. He flooded the earth. He punishes mankind for obtaining knowledge. He floods the earth. Yahweh lives on a magical mountain. He has 12 tribes, 12 Olympians. All right. He punished man for receiving knowledge. Floods the earth. It's the same. Stop playing games. So if you guys are going to reject this, you just, man, there's something wrong with your brain, man. You ain't right. You're really not right. Kelsa saw Yahweh's monotheism as compatible with Jupiter's role as the highest god. Did I already read that? The Roman scholar Marcus Terentius Varro, as cited by Augustine, suggested that the Jewish god was equivalent to Jupiter, noting that both were worshipped as the highest deities without images in their holiest sanctuaries, though Jewish worship was strictly aniconic, unlike Jupiter's cult, which allowed statues. Right. They had, like I said, they had a statue of Jupiter in the temple, but they were against, like, I'm not sure how that worked. So when people think paganism, you know, they were all, it's not what you think it is. The Old Testament is not what you think it is. Okay, ancient Judaism is very similar to the ancient Romans and their religion. The big difference was that ancient Jews were the biggest religious fanatics on the face of the planet. Genetically speaking, the ancient Romans, the ancient Jews, and the ancient Greeks are all very similar genetically. All right, Jewish Sabbath and Saturn. While your previous question focused, is this the front of it? While your English hard. While your previous question focused on Saturn and the Sabbath, last video I made, it's worth noting that the association of Saturday with the Jewish Sabbath led some Romans to link Jewish worship to Saturn rather than Jupiter. Well, right, because they kept the Sabbath. That means because the Jews actually originally worshiped Saturn Kronos. All right, the Romans called him Saturn. The Greeks called him Kronos. The Phoenicians called him Israel. That's the god of the Phoenicians, the god of the Israelites. Israel. All right, get it through your head. It's facts. All right, but in the ancient world, all the people of the Mediterranean, except for the Egyptians, they're different and weird. All right, everybody originally worshipped Saturn. All right, the Greeks, the original god of the Greeks, the original top god of the Greeks and the Romans was Saturn, Kronos. The original god of the Phoenicians was El. But at some point in time, Saturn, Kronos, he was usurped by his son Zeus, a.k.a. Jupiter, a.k.a. Baal, a.k.a. Yahweh, Jove. And then he became the top god. And the Israelite religion preserved a lot of their original religion, which contained that Saturn worship. And the main thing was being the Sabbath. Because Saturn, the word Sabbath and Saturn day means exactly the same thing. Saturn. It goes back to El. Well, it actually means the number 7, which is represented by Saturn. Why is there 7 days in the week? Representing 7 planetary bodies. Okay, oh, it's because God created the earth and so that's right. All right. The Jewish Sabbath led some Romans to link Jewish worship to Saturn rather than Jupiter. Well, they're right still. They're right both ways because the God of the Jews is Saturn and Jupiter, both of them. But Jupiter took over and he took on the attributes of the original god Saturn. However, Jupiter was a more common comparison for Yahweh among elites due to his role as the supreme god. For example, Plutarch discusses Jewish practices in Saturn, but doesn't rule out Jupiter comparisons in broader discourse. And that's why the Roman Catholic Church Jewed up the New Testament and Jewed up Christianity, because the Romans looked at Yahweh like that's Jupiter. Jupiter's their top god. So the Roman Church, that's why they kept the Old Testament. The first New Testament ever published was published by Marcion, and Marcion outright rejected the Old Testament. He said the God of the Old Testament, Yahweh, is not the God of Jesus. Okay? That's what he said. That's what Marcion said, bro. But Rome, Marcion took his gospel that he came up with. Well, he didn't write it, but he published the first ever gospel. It contained one gospel. Marcion published the first ever New Testament. It contained one gospel and 10 of Paul's letters. And he took his New Testament to Rome, and they took it, and they copied it, they plagiarized it, and changed it, Jewed it up. And then they added the Old Testament with it. And that's where we get our modern Bible. In our modern Bible, it contains the Old Testament and the New Testament. Marcion invented the phrase New Testament. Okay? Our Bible should not have an Old Testament in it. That was added by the Church of Rome because they worshiped Jove, Yahweh. Let me get that through your head. At least that's my belief. I'm pretty sure that's what happened. All right. You know what comes to religious people? They don't want to let go of the old ways. All right. That's why, the hell with Yahweh. Yahweh's that fig tree that Jesus cursed. Jesus, where am I at? Let's go back up to a philosophical lens. Educated Romans familiar with Jewish monotheism through diasporous communities or conquest often equated Yahweh with Jupiter, make Jewish religion comprehensible within their polytheistic framework. I mean, the Bible is pretty polytheistic. Like I said, El, Yahweh, that's two gods right there. Saturn, there's another being. He's like some kind of angel. Then you have angels. All right, so there's a lot of different gods. The Elohim is plural, so it's polytheistic. There's many gods. Now you have a council of gods in Psalms 8. Yeah, Psalms the 82nd chapter. It has a whole council of gods. Psalms 82 is describing Mount Olympus. That's exactly what it is. All right, it's the same thing, guys. So don't kid yourself, okay? Don't be a sucker. You know, a sucker's born every minute. I'm glad I'm not a sucker. It feels great, bro. It really does. But I love Jesus, though. So I follow Jesus. I don't follow Jews. I don't follow the Jews. I'm not a goddamn Jew. I don't follow the Jewish religion. None of it. Jewish resistance. Jews themselves rejected such equality. Of course. All Christians are going to reject it. Oh, that's nonsense. That's ridiculous. Oh, you're of the devil. That's Satan. That's just Satan talking. You know, they think they're so special. No, you guys are seriously misled. Emphasizing Yahweh's uniqueness and yeah, he's very unique with his magical mountain and his 12 tribes. That's very unique, bro. Samson was real unique. All right, this tension is evident in texts like the Septuagint or Philo of Alexandria's works with stress monotheism. Yeah, sacrificing bulls and goats, that was really unique. All the pagans were doing it. Some Romans misunderstood Jewish practices, leading to mixed associations, equating Yahweh with Saturn due to the Sabbath of Jupiter due to divine supremacy. Whatever. Why Jupiter? Shared attributes. Jupiter's role as the sky god, lawgiver, supreme deity, mirrored Yahweh's attributes as a creator, judge, and soul god in Jewish theology. You know what? While no universal Roman consensus equated Yahweh. Yeah, there was no universal Roman consensus. You had other Romans who would say Yahweh was someone else. Yahweh is going to also be associated with Dionysus. The word Sabaoth is linked. Let's look that up. You don't want to read all that stuff I was talking about. I was trying to cancel my Boost mobile account today, bro. I couldn't take it no more. I had to transfer it to Spectrum. I don't want to talk about it, bro. It took quite a lot. Oh man, it was a nightmare. But I was trying to figure out how to unlock my Boost phone. I don't think you can do it. So now I have to buy another phone. That's pretty gay. But let me get does anybody out there know how to unlock a Boost phone? Probably not. I was going to put a custom operating system on it. I might still do that. Put a custom operating system on it. Get rid of the Boost stuff. And Just use Wi-Fi. Fuck it. But yeah, Grok is. I don't even use a search engine no more. I just use Grok, bro. What was I gonna ask it? We was just talking about the Sabbath. That Yahweh is actually Jupiter, and Jupiter came first, not Yahweh. Okay, the Bible came after Greek mythology. All right, you got the Bible was written in like the Old Testament. Oh man, it's not as old as you guys think it is. Homer, the Iliad and the Odyssey is older than the Bible. You guys really don't want to accept that, but it's really true. All right, I mean, I really hate to hurt your feelings, but you guys really got to start coming around and accepting these truths. Homer is older than the Old Testament. Now, there might be some parts of the Old Testament that are old, you know, maybe like the Book of Hosea. Book of Hosea is older than the Torah. All right, but what was I about to look up? I done forgot. Oh, yeah, the word Sabaoth. How do you spell Sabaoth? Is Sabaoth? Oh, my God. Autocorrect. Sabaoth? Related to Dionysus? Jesus is not related to Dionysus. Okay, the turning of water into wine in John the 2nd chapter is a parable about a trinity. Whether you want to accept that or not. I made a video on it. It has nothing to do with Dionysus. It's actually saying that he's greater than Dionysus. You can go watch that video if you would like. Let's see what Grok says on this one. The term Sabaoth, often spelled, in the Hebrew it starts with a taza. The term Sabaoth, often spelled, you say that, is a Hebrew word meaning host or armies, commonly used in the Bible as part of the divine name, Yahweh Sabaoth, Lord of Hosts. It refers to God's sovereignty over the heavenly armies or cosmic forces. Dionysus, on the other hand, is a Greek god of wine, fertility, ritual of madness, and ecstasy, associated with revelry and liberation in Greco-Roman mythology. At first glance, these two seem unrelated. Grok be getting me. He thinks it's funny. At first glance, they seem unrelated, but let's explore whether there's any connection considering linguistic, cultural, or historical context. Sabaoth, derived from the Hebrew word, it means host, emphasizes God's authority. It has no direct linguistic connection to Greek or the name Dionysus. The Dionysus meaning God. All right. There is a connection somewhere. Here, let's go down here. There's no direct... What about this? Plutarch suggests a connection between Jewish Sabbath practices and Dionysus, noting that the Sabbath involved wine and festivity in some Jewish communities. The term Sabaoth itself, or military cosmic power, doesn't align with Dionysus' attributes of wine, ecstasy, making a direct link unlikely. There is a link I'm looking for. He's going to say it. Oh, here it is. There it is. Oh, see, Grok's going to correct us. Maybe we were all wrong. Sabazios confusion. A potential source of confusion arises with Sabazios, a Phrygian or Thracian god sometimes associated with Dionysus or Zeus in a Greco-Roman religion. Sabazios was a god of fertility, vegetation, ecstatic worship, sharing traits with Dionysus. Well, I've always heard that was Dionysus. So... some scholars suggest the Greco-Roman writers might have confused Sabaoth with Sabazios due to phonetic similarity in the Jewish Sabbath's association with Saturn. God damn it, I can't talk. For instance, Valerius Maximus, 1st century CE, mentions a Roman expulsion of the Jews and Sabazios worshippers in 139 BC, possibly conflating Jewish practices with those of Sabazios' cult. While Sabazios is linked to Dionysus through shared ecstatic and fertility themes, there's no direct evidence that Sabaoth was equated. Yeah, that's what... But I've watched like a bunch of videos on YouTube, so I'm an expert. And all the videos on YouTube told me that there is a link. So, But you can look into it. I think of the Gnostic Conformity. He talks about this a lot. He's always got this little historian experts on his channel. So it is interesting. Maybe there is no connection. Maybe there is a connection. There is no direct or substantiated connection between Sabbath oath and Dionysus, though they originate from distinct religious traditions. So you can read the rest of it on your own. Okay, I got stuff I gotta do. I didn't mean to take this long. The point is this, bro. It's a Mediterranean culture. They all had very similar practices and customs. Okay, they were very similar culturally. The big difference between the Jews and the Greeks and the Romans is the Jews were religious extremists. I mean, the Greeks were religious extremists too. Don't get me wrong. The Spartans, in the ancient world, everybody was a religious extremist. But it appears the Jews were the most extremist of them all. Okay, they chose their religion extremism over common sense every time, which got them obliterated by the Romans. Okay, because they didn't want to capitulate. They didn't want to negotiate. They just, I got to stay true to my religion and my God. And you got obliterated and destroyed for your religious extremism. So the Jews in the ancient world, Phoenicians, Israelites. Well, a lot of people will say Jews and Israelites are not the same. I'm not going to talk about that. I will just say the Jews, yes, they were religious extremists. And Jesus checked them on that. He told them they were pretty much retarded. All right. That's my point. The whole point of this video was just to tell you that yes, that Yahweh is Jove. They all worship the same God, bro. It's all the same people.